The scorching sun hung low over the refugee camp near the border, casting long, dusty shadows across rows of makeshift tents. Angelina Jolie arrived with a small humanitarian team, her face marked with the quiet determination that had become her signature in conflict zones. She wore simple, practical clothes, a khaki shirt, jeans, and a scarf tied loosely around her neck. The heat was oppressive, but the weight of the stories she was about to hear felt heavier. As she walked through the camp, children with weary eyes and fragile smiles peeked out from behind their mothers. The smell of dust and desperation lingered in the air. Angelina paused often, kneeling to speak with families, listening more than talking, her gaze steady and empathetic. She was here not as a celebrity, but as a UN Goodwill Ambassador, determined to amplify voices often drowned out by the noise of global politics. Then she saw him, a small boy sitting alone on the edge of a crumbling concrete slab. His clothes were tattered, his face streaked with dirt, but his eyes held a defiance, a spark that defied the bleakness around him. His name was Sammy, no older than 10, clutching a faded photograph tightly in his small hands. Curiosity pulled Angelina toward him. She crouched down to his level, offering a gentle smile. "Hi there. What's your name?" she asked softly. Sammy glanced up, wary at first, then whispered, "Sammy." His voice was barely audible over the distant hum of generators. Angelina noticed the photo, a family portrait, faded but clearly cherished. "Is that your family?" she asked, pointing gently to the photo. Sammy nodded, his lips pressed into a thin line. He didn't offer more, but his eyes told a story of loss and fear. Angelina didn't push. Instead, she sat beside him, the silence between them filled with unspoken understanding. Sometimes, presence was louder than words. After a few minutes, Sammy began to speak in broken sentences. His family had fled their home when the conflict escalated. He lost his parents in the chaos of the escape, separated in a sea of terrified faces. Since then, he had been surviving alone in the camp, clinging to the photo like an anchor in a storm. Angelina listened, her heart tightening with every word. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small notebook. "Would you like to draw something? Sometimes it helps," she suggested gently. Sammy hesitated, then nodded. He drew a house with a tree beside it, a sun shining brightly above, a memory, a dream, or maybe both. Determined to help, Angelina spoke with aid workers about Sammy's situation. The camp was overwhelmed, and cases like his were heartbreakingly common. But Angelina refused to let his story be another lost statistic. She made calls, leveraging her influence to find resources, legal support, and child welfare advocates who could help reunite Sammy with any surviving family. That night, Angelina couldn't sleep. The image of Sammy's solemn face haunted her. She wrote in her journal about the encounter, her words filled with a mixture of hope and frustration. She had seen too many children like Sammy, each story unique yet painfully similar. But this time she vowed to see it through. Over the next few days, Angelina visited Sammy regularly. She brought small gifts, a book, some crayons, a soft blanket. They shared stories, laughter slowly replacing the silence. Sammy began to trust her, his guarded demeanor softening. For the first time in weeks, he smiled, a genuine, unguarded smile. Weeks turned into months. Angelina stayed connected even after leaving the camp, her team providing updates. Sammy's story became a part of her, a reminder of why she did this work. Eventually, a breakthrough came. An uncle had been located in another refugee camp across the border. The reunion was arranged with cautious optimism. The day of the reunion was filled with nervous anticipation. Angelina returned to witness it herself. Sammy stood by her side, clutching her hand tightly. When his uncle appeared, there was a moment of hesitation, recognition mixed with disbelief. Then Sammy ran, the photo still in his grip, straight into his uncle's arms. Tears streamed down Angelina's face as she watched the reunion. It wasn't just about one child finding family. It was a symbol of hope amidst despair. Before leaving, she knelt beside Sammy one last time. "You're stronger than you know," she whispered. Sammy looked at her with those same defiant eyes, now softened with gratitude. But Angelina's work didn't end there. Inspired by Sammy's resilience, she launched a new initiative focused on reuniting displaced children with their families. She shared Sammy's story at global conferences, not as a tale of tragedy but as a testament to human strength and the power of compassion. Months later, Angelina received a letter from Sammy, written in shaky handwriting. "Thank you for finding me," it read. "I miss you. I'm happy now." The letter was simple, but it carried the weight of everything they had been through. Angelina kept it tucked in her journal, a cherished reminder. On her next humanitarian mission, Angelina carried Sammy's story with her, a beacon of hope amid new faces and new tragedies. Each child she met was another Sammy, another soul deserving of care and attention. She listened, she helped, and she never forgot. Years later, during an interview, Angelina was asked what moment defined her humanitarian work. She didn't hesitate. "Sammy," she said softly, "a little boy with a big heart who taught me that even in the darkest places, hope can find a way." Sammy grew up, thriving under his uncle's care. He attended school, made friends, and eventually became a youth advocate, inspired by the woman who had once sat beside him in the dust and listened. He spoke at events, sharing his story, not of loss, but of hope. One day, at an international summit on refugee rights, Sammy and Angelina crossed paths again. He was no longer the small, scared boy clutching a photo. He was confident, articulate, and filled with purpose. They embraced, the years melting away in that single moment. As they stood side by side, addressing the audience, their voices carried the same message. Compassion has no borders, and a single act of kindness can ripple across time, changing lives in ways we may never fully understand. For Angelina and Sammy, their story was a beacon of hope, shining brightly against the darkness of despair.